Well, I finally beat it. I guess I should probably get to work on this Persona 5 video.
Hey!
No! We're gonna do it now! Yo, it's Austin, and the time has finally come. Yes, Persona 5 is here, and I'm extremely excited to talk about it. It's been a long time since, like, a new mainline Persona game. Like, what, 10 years or something like that? So without wasting any time, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And yes, I'm still a garbage bin with my special editions. Sorry. Full disclaimer, I am a filthy fanboy for this franchise. Shin Megami Tensei, the spin-offs, the Persona games. I haven't had the time to play everything yet, but holy goddamn if they don't speak to me. Well, most of them. For those of you worried about spoilers, have no fear. I'll be blurring out spoiler-sensitive stuff, considering it throws itself directly into the UI. You'll probably see some characters here and there, but I promise I won't talk about anything spoiler-tastic after the initial setup of the game. Don't want them Atlas USA cleaners showing up at my door. A lot of you probably know what Persona 5 is already, but for those of you who don't, the easiest way for me to describe it is as a hellish Pokemon for adults that's also a dating simulator that's also gonna make you fucking cry. Just a little bit. I mean, it's an Atlas game, and if there's one thing these games are good at, it's getting you attached to the plethora of characters they throw at you before finding manners to rip you to shreds. Persona 5 is no exception to this. In fact, I might say that this might be the best one. I know that's a big thing to say, but I'm gonna do my best to explain why. Style. If there ever was a video game that figuratively bled style all over the place, it would be Persona 5. Even if you know nothing about the franchise and just have a passing interest, it's hard to have not at least seen glimpses of it in action. But once you finally get your grubby little hands on it, you realize that it's not just style. It's not all just flashy nonsense under the guise of an RPG. It's like, oh no, it is the best one. But you know, it better be, considering how long it's been. Historically, when you boot up one of the Persona games, you're greeted with hours and hours of exposition before anything dramatic happens. This isn't something I ever minded too much because I always found the setups relatively gripping and, well, I kinda dig visual novels. Persona 5, however, decides to literally throw you directly into the action. You're in control of the protagonist, the leader of the Phantom Thieves. A bunch of shadowy figures are speaking to you, ones who you meet along the way but are carefully tucked into the shadows so as to not give away too much. But what we have here is a heist gone wrong that leads to, well...
There are no laws here to protect criminals like you.
If your only experience with the entire Shin Megami Tensei franchise is Persona 4 or Tokyo Mirage Sessions, you might be like, what is this violence? And I mean, I guess that's fair. If this bothers you, you might as well stop, but don't though, because it's real good. And then finally, you're thrown into the exposition. Well, I mean, it's still there, but they decided to give the player a bit of action first. And you know what that does? Gives the player hella incentive. What was originally 2 or whatever hours of being a goody two-shoes and just meeting people turns into, okay, how do we get here? Who's this sexy lady? I want to be interrogated. So, who are we following? Who is that sexy lady? What the hell is going on and why should we care? We'll get into it. We'll talk about it. This here is the protagonist. He's a handsome young man packing some big-ass glasses, a shaggy haircut, and a pretty unamused face. Pretty standard for your typical Persona flair, but a standout nonetheless. You get into a bit of a tussle with a drunk adult, beat his ass, are sued and expelled from your original school. That's a bit of a departure from simply going to live with your uncle in the countryside. From here, a coffee shop owner named Sojiro, or as lovingly referred to by the fandom as Daddy, takes care of you, albeit hesitantly.
What a waste of my Sunday.
From here, you'll meet Ryuji, the best friend archetype of the game. I actually like him quite a bit, as he's a big departure in personality from characters like Junpei or Yosuke, mostly because he's not very bright.
Man, and it's all thanks to us being the Phantom Thieves.
Oh, fuck. I can't believe you've done this.
You'll also have run-ins with Anne, the half-Japanese girl, and the lovely mascot character of Persona 5, Morgana. I won't go into details about how or why, but they eventually all come together and using the powers they gain from awakening their personas, form the Phantom Thieves, a criminal vigilante group hell-bent on getting rid of shitty adults by stealing their hearts. Not my words, y'all. feels weird to be a grown-ass man cheering for teenagers basically saying fuck adults, but I'll take it. Also, they give each other code names, so we can just call the protagonist Joker like they do in game. Makes it easy, considering I don't really feel like calling him Akira Kurusu. Instead, in game, I named him Austin Eruption because I'm an unimaginative, lazy fuck. From here, you're solving mysteries and doing your best to stick up for the little guy. You make your presence as the Phantom Thieves known pretty early, so you become the talk of the town. This is actually really cool because you feel actively involved in everything going on. Once you solve your first case, you'll meet characters like Yusuke, the apprentice painter, and Makoto, the model honor student. We also have Futaba and Haru, but I can't really talk about them without diving too hard into that spoiler Atlas kills me territory, so I'll let you experience them for yourself. The main cast here are also strikingly memorable that it kills me. Like, it's hard for me to really say that I like one over the other, which in my opinion is a great feat. I mean, look, I got best girls, but we'll save that for now. So like any other modern Persona game, you also get to tackle social links again. This time in the form of confidants. Why confidants? Well, because you have way more usage from them as opposed to previous games. And P5 is sure as hell to let you know it, because anytime you establish a link, the flashback segment kicks back to you being interrogated by Sai. Oh yeah, that's her name, by the way. Sai pretty much insists that you're not good enough to do things on your own and demands names. This time around, the social links actively do things to help you out in the game other than giving you Velvet Room XP boosts. Some will give you new attacks, access to special abilities in combat, so not only are a lot of these super well written and intriguing, but now you're given multiple rewards for doing so. It's the shit. On top of that, you can sometimes invite characters out to places and even run into other confidants while doing so. Sometimes you'll get awkward conversations, but it's really cool to see the characters interact without the main character holding everyone's hands. From here, it's kind of like Persona 3 and 4 on steroids, but just saying that doesn't really do it justice. There's so much more going on in Persona 5 that it's not just, every system's been revamped. So let's go ahead and start with the combat.
There's 2 enemies! Don't underestimate them!
Man, I really love the press turn combat system, essentially exploiting weaknesses in order to gain extra attacks. It's not really an optional thing. It's pretty recommended because monsters typically are no joke. That's all pretty much the same, but they added so much to this. We've got 3 new attack types: nuclear, psi, and ranged attacks via guns! Not to mention that you now have the ability to switch out party members mid-combat, kinda like Final Fantasy X. I never really understood why this wasn't a feature before, but hey, now we got it. Now, in Persona 3 and 4, when you exploit everyone's weaknesses, you get the option to launch an all-out attack, which results in a goddamn melee. 5 retains that, but now with sexy, stylistic kill screens. Oh, and you also get demon conversations like I called it, bitch! This is essentially part of what's called the hold-up, which is quite literally your party members surrounding the enemies, aiming guns at them, and looking like they're about to mug the hell out of them. I kind of feel bad about it sometimes, especially when you get to talk to the enemies and hear what they have to say. You can ask them to join up as a persona to increase your repertoire as opposed to random drops in the previous games. Or you can ask them for money or items and keep asking for money until they decide enough is enough and they'll fight you. You'll never get as much experience, but it's pretty fun to see how some of these play out. So maybe it's not really fair to compare a nearly 10-year-old game to this, but man, they really figured out dungeons in this game. Turns out, hey, options are a good thing. As you progress through the story, you're presented with major dungeons to tackle, or as they're known in game, palaces. Palaces are a manifestation of an evil person's desires and their cognition on how they view the world around them. But instead of making them random floors with random layouts and random encounters, Persona 5 made them linear and specific. Why? Well, it only makes sense with the thief theme of the game. Rather than walking around aimlessly looking for your next floor, you're given puzzles and objectives to do. You're sneaking around in order to make your way to the end. If you get spotted too much, you're booted out of the dungeon for the day. I love this because it makes each specific palace feel extremely unique and progression through them feels great. And you can actually save in the dungeon and fast travel between save points, so I'll take that convenience. But if you miss those old randomized dungeons, have no fear, as Mementos is here. A clear take on Persona 3's Tartarus, this serves as a place to explore for quests, grind, and really do whatever the hell you want with. I mean, you don't even have to grind, but for Shin Megami Tensei fans old and new, Persona 5 has you covered. Covering RPGs can be kind of difficult for me because I'm not always sure what points I need to hit. Some of you are probably thinking, oh, well, Austin clearly likes this game, and I mean, you're right. But there are some negatives that I need to address in order to be completely fair and honest. Some of them might even be deal breakers for you. So before I get into what I really want to talk about, let's get into that. Persona 5 can be tedious. After all, this game is on a single playthrough, not even going for full completion, a 100-hour long game. 100 fucking hours! Even for a JRPG, that's a hell of a time sink. I mean, 3 and 4 were like 70-hour long games, so they basically took that and sprinkled on a Chrono Trigger and, I don't know, The Order 1886. This metaphor's stupid. In a game this long, you'd better fucking hope that all of the dialogue is gripping and fantastic, but unfortunately, sometimes it's just too much. All of the characters will text each other in-game, which is a kick-ass concept, but at least half of the total text dialogue is copy, paste, or exposition for people who weren't paying attention. This isn't even really a new addition to the franchise or anything, as Persona 3 and 4 were very wordy games as well. But if you can tell if a conversation is going to be worth your time based on the day it is in-game, there are moments where you're gonna zone out. However, when the dialogue becomes worth your time, it hits hard. We'll get to that. Next up on my list of nitpicks, because nothing can get away unscathed, is the one thing that has been a Persona staple for a while now. When Joker dies, it's game over. This can be circumvented by playing in safe mode, where you restart the current battle, but man, it's just really fucking dumb. See, in Persona 3, there was a very specific reason for this happening, but in 4 and now 5, it's nothing but unfriendly to the player, especially when you can still die from instant death attacks. The Shin Megami Tensei franchise has always been sitting proudly on its throne of artificial difficulty bullshit, much less so over the years, but this is one thing I think they could have left back in the 2000s. It's not even like it was a huge problem for me, as I only died in a normal combat situation twice, but when you have parties filled with characters that can resurrect you, it's kind of dumb for it to be over when the main character dies. At least you can equip Shikioji and be so overpowered that nothing matters. Funnily enough, my next nitpick comes in the form of something that I was initially excited about. It's pretty minor, but okay, I feel stupid for having an issue with demon conversations, okay? Is that fair? Demon conversations were removed in Persona 3, but recently came back here in 5. Like Pokemon, except with large dick monsters everywhere. Each has their own set of abilities and will level up individually alongside Joker, so you make your own collection of them in order to play the main character that you want to. No other character can do this because you're a special boy, so take care. But it can be really frustrating when you're just trying to have a conversation and things just don't play out the way you think they would. For example, he liked what I said twice, he should join me, right? Nah, just gave me an item. It can be very entertaining to see what each demon has to say, but sometimes it feels like just firing a shot into the dark and hoping it hits. I can deal with it, but it can get really annoying when they just keep attacking you. And I guess my last issue would be the romance choices. You've got a lot. It's almost like a gallery of a bunch of kawaii-ass girls. But I was a little disappointed to find out that I couldn't hook up with the boys. It's strange to me considering they had a route initially planned in Persona 4 for Yosuke. It's even stranger because Persona 5 lets you date adults as a high schooler. It's not the decision I would have made, because it's always nice to see just more and more representation. Shame. Okay, cool. That was like an entire page of nitpicks I had with the game. It's not perfect, nothing is, but I will say Persona 5 does a lot of stuff right. So now everyone, welcome to the part of the video called the part of the video where Austin gushes about Persona 5 a lot, and you're all very concerned.
All right.
Yes. When I think of amazing video game soundtracks, I think of Nobuo Uematsu, Yuzo Koshiro, Koji Kondo, all the Final Fantasies, Streets of Rages, and Zeldas you can shake a stick at. While I've really enjoyed a majority of the tunes in the Shin Megami Tensei, Persona, and many spin-off games, I don't think the composer Shoji Meguro ever released something as next level as Persona 5. I don't think anyone's released a video game soundtrack this good. Even with a massive track listing of over 100 songs, nearly every one in Persona 5 is extremely memorable without getting annoying. Hell, the normal battle theme, Last Surprise, never grated on me in the 106 hours I sunk into this game. Persona 4's Reach Out to the Truth got to me after a while, and Mass Destruction, well, I can only take that for so long. If you were to ask me if a combination of smooth jazz, heavy metal, dark industrial, and heavy rock would make for a good game soundtrack like 4 years ago, I would have laughed and said, maybe? But as it turns out, it's an amazing fit. Certain tracks are perfect for specific moments. Wailing organs can make a mood lighthearted or incredibly depressing. I could go on forever, but simply put, I don't think I've ever played a 100-hour-long game without getting sick of the music. But I'll be damned if Persona 5 didn't pull that off. You know you've got something special when a combination of notes paired with specific moments can elicit strong emotions. Fucking bravo. Never play Persona 5 with me because I'll sing along in air guitar the entire time. The graphical enhancement from Persona 4 is pretty massive, and while if we're just counting polygons, Persona 5 isn't crazy or anything, the expressiveness of certain cutscenes in the story is strong. I keep forgetting that they have like actual mocap for some animations because I'll see something fancy happen and be like, oh yeah, this isn't Persona 4. As a whole, everything graphically is solid. The UI is impressive to look at and remains that way for the whole experience. I mean, sometimes the battle ending animation goes on for just a little bit too long, but overall it'll stain your eye holes till they rot and all you can see is red, in a good way. Now before we get into the serious stuff, I got something to say. We did it, guys! We didn't have to boycott the game. Some of you may remember a long time ago that I said if Naoto Shirogane didn't make it into Persona 5, I would boycott it. But we did it! She makes a cameo. Via one small text box, but we did it. We did it. Oh, and Makoto is best girl. Easy. Her confidant is actually really interesting, and it's neat to see what they did with her character arc, considering she's supposed to be the model student type. She's such a cool and good character. I could go more into that, but let's be real, it's actually really hard to choose here when you got hot mamas like Kawakami on the table as well. Just make sure to only date one or you'll suffer the consequences, because hey, these girls actually have some agency this time around. A really neat thing that happened, probably only to me, was something theming related. Near the beginning of the game, when you're headed to school for the first time, I got completely lost in the subway station. I talked to a few people who didn't have that problem and a few who did, but in terms of the game making you move to a new city, getting lost was a really awesome way to relay that. But it turns out I'm really dumb, so don't take that one to heart. All jokes aside, Persona 5 does something that I don't think another game has really done well in the past, at least not off the top of my head. If you take away the supernatural element of them being the Phantom Thieves, if you take away the video game nonsense and wordy exposition for the player, you have one of the most believable casts of main characters I've seen in any work of media. A lot of RPGs will have you believe that everything is hunky-dory all the damn time, but Persona 5 doesn't do that. These characters have issues with each other, and it gets explored. It's not rainbows and sunshines all the time, and as a reader, that's something I really appreciate. Some of the dialogue options you get to make as Joker can make you seem like you're just going for a laugh, or hell, you can just be an asshole. There's no close pre-established friendships here, there's no coming in as the mysterious popular kid and having the entire world finding you intriguing. That's because Persona 5 at its core is about being a social outcast, being estranged from the norm, feeling alone in a crowd of hundreds. From the get-go, there's this whole point being driven home about rumors and things that can make people feel bad. One of your social links sets up a fan site for the Phantom Thieves so you can see what people think about you during pretty much any transition. There's even moments in the game where it shows the thoughts of people for an extended period of time. Everyone in your party is someone used to feeling alone in the world. I kind of find this crushingly relatable at times, because the truth is you're not alone. Persona 5 is about being okay with other people's cognition of you and finding those who are on the same level. And even though things may not be peachy all the time, even though you might fight, argue, and have issues, you know that these are the people who matter the most. Just like any group of friends, mine, Joker's, yours, are all a gang of weirdos who just want to find a purpose. Even through all of the interdimensional vigilante justice, talking cats, and persona-fusing guillotine executions and electric chairs where you sacrifice pieces of yourself to become stronger, this central point remained strong from early in the game till the very last second. Enter the whole motif about me crying at video games a lot. I can't help it, man. If you've ever enjoyed a recommendation from me, Persona 5 will not disappoint. I don't like to be hyperbolic in my final judgments of things, but I'd say Persona 5 is the best game I've talked about on this channel. I'd even say it might be my personal favorite JRPG, if for only the soundtrack and the story hitting so hard. But if you only ever take one recommendation from me, let it be Persona 5. If Pokemon-ish visual novel RPGs with extremely gripping writing and character arcs sounds good to you, you'll love it. It's not perfect, but it sure is close. At least for me. You know, it feels pretty surreal to have this in my hands, completed and ready for another go. I've been talking about Persona 5 and wanting to play it since near the inception of my channel back when it was called Boku no Eruption, so like, it almost feels like a chapter's been closed. I mean, who knows what's ahead on the horizon, what with all the spin-offs like Persona 5 Racing or Persona 5 Agile Gunplay or Q2. I don't usually give out scores because I find them to be a bit arbitrary, but if I had to with Persona 5, it would probably be...
I'm coming!
Out of 10.
Thank you all so much for watching. Well, we've done it. We've tackled Persona 5, so what's next? Maybe subscribe and you'll see. Some say you'll never see it coming.